Hello there and welcome back. Finally, I can talk about this new OXI One MKII. We worked on this thing for the past 6 months. In around September, Manuel from OXI reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be involved in the development of the new iteration of what has been my main and favorite sequencer of the past few years. Yes, I use a few others, but this has been my writing tool. And I said, of course, yes. And then I also thought, how can we improve something that I really deeply love? And I think it's already a complete instrument, a complete tool. So the mission was to make a sequencer actually more playable. To me, a sequencer has to be an instrument, has to be something that you interact with. And we came out with some new ideas, some innovative stuff. And I believe that now the MKII literally is something that is performance ready, it's super fun to use, intuitive, and it's the easiest way for me to translate my ideas and put them in music. But before going on, I also want to stress that MKII is an amazing sequencer already. There's actually one firmware that will come out soon, which will improve it and bring some new stuff. But obviously, the community, the artists, all the people that were using MKII were asking us a lot of stuff. And we had to improve, and we wanted to build a platform that not only it's easier to play with, but also allows for future implementation, future firmware. And if you have been with OXI for a while, you know that since the inception of it, since 4 or 5 years ago, the firmwares come one after another and had tons and tons of features, always with the goal of make the life of a music producer easier. Before going on, a few ways you can support my page. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Buy from the affiliate link down below. You can also become a Patreon. On Patreon you will find a lot of the demos, track from scratch, track breakdown. I will reply to all of your questions. All right, that said, let's go into it. Let's first dig into what's new. The most evident things is that we added 8 sequencer. That was the feature that everybody was asking. Not me, to be honest. I was completely fine with 4 tracks, 4 sequencers. They're called sequencer. I always call it tracks, so forgive me and forgive me, Manuel. If you hear that, he always say, no, those are sequencers. My way of writing music, it always revolves around a counterpoint of 4 voices. But I have to say, since I have the MKII and now I have the real estate to experiment, it's great to have 8 tracks. And remember, now you could use multi-track in each of these sequencers and get 64 tracks. That's quite a lot. We did that because we believe that OXI One MKII can be a better brain for your system, especially if you own a lot of synths. We also added an SD card down here. The SD card allows you to have unlimited projects. The internal memory now has the chance to load 20 projects instantly. If you want more, you can load them from the card. You can also save in the card scales. The machine is a bit longer because we had to add this row of buttons here. So we repurpose this one for new exciting things. The first one is performance. Performance is one of the features that I love most. It allows you to interact with all of your track at the same time. You have the first row here, which set the mutes. So you can mute and unmute everything. Let's listen to that. So instantly I can bring in everything I want. But if you are using a multi-track, and I'm using a multi-track in sequencer number 8, then you can mute the different tracks of the multi-track. On this side of the multi-track, you have a looper and a filler, which create interesting variation. So right now I'm having the Nord drum sequenced by this track mono here. And I can bring in and on. Let's mute it. Now you would ask me, what does this column here does, and this is the transposition engine, which I love. So let's bring in the first sequence. When it's in a center position, the sequence is unaltered, but you can then transpose an octave higher and lower. So what I was doing in the little demo, I have this bass going on, which is on track 3. It's a simple note, sustained, and rather than creating a bass line, since this is a very simple thing, I can just make harmonic progression using the performance page. So now I will transpose both this line and the bass. And this is a feature I really love. It allows you to create very fast, interesting composition. You can jam, you can improvise in literally 1 second, and I'll show you later. There's another function, pressing Shift, you can move the steps, shift the sequences, and I'll show you that later when we will jam from scratch. The second page here, it's the mod lane. Now you had 4 mod lanes in the Mark I. Now we have 8, so that's a lot. This machine shines when you connect it to a computer with a VST or something like that, because I find out that with 8 mod lanes I can control a lot of stuff on modern synths. Of course, when I use stuff like the Performer, which has basically no MIDI implementation, it's a bit more complicated. Then we have a Gen page. This allows you to put few notes and then the machine automatically will generate. Think like you put a seed and the machine will expand on that and generate sequences. We will see that later, or maybe in another video, because there's so many things to talk about. And then we have this flow button, which a lot of people asking me, what is the flow button? And the flow button is an idea that I had actually, so I take the responsibility of that. That was the feel button, but I always thought that feel is very related to drums, and this can be mapped to a lot of things that will actually change a lot of your sequences, and it works globally on the entire machine. So it's a sort of changing the flow of what's happening. So yes, I like this name. What it does in this precise example, I set the flow to change this sequencer. When I press it, it adds notes and then adds the other things that I really love, that it's called the accumulator. Now we will talk about that. Let's create a sequence of 6 steps. Just 2 steps like that. One thing that I love of sequencer, of sequencing, which is my style, it's like I like to have a very few steps in front of me and interact with that and have the chance to make that simple setup very complex. Now we put all the step setting on the step page here. So if you press the step, then you have 3 pages here where you can go. The first one is where you set velocity, octave, gate, and trig conditions, as it was before. The second page is the repetition engine, which we will talk in a second, with offset and glide. And then the third page is the accumulator page. What is accumulation? It's a concept that has been already used precedently in some other sequencer, but we pushed it to the next level. At this point, we can always only work with pitches. And what does it mean? It means that every time that the playhead hit a trigger, you can tell him to add, on top of what was the basic pitch, a different amount of semitones. So obviously that can be quantized to scale, and you have a lot of possibility to tell how this works. let me give you an example. It's easier to show than to tell about. Second step, which sounds like this, I want to add 2 semitone every time that the playhead passes. So I set amount +2. Mode is the different way this works. Maybe that's for another in-depth video, which I did on my Patreon already, so you can go check it out. And then you can set a positive and negative limit for the accumulation. Say once you reach plus, in this case, 7 semitone, you reset. So let's see what happens. And you can set different amount. So let's do 1. Very simple and effective. Now, this can be conditional, so mean that here in the accumulation percentage you can set happening all the time or like once every certain amount of cycle, and you can also tie to flow. So right now, nothing happened, but if I press flow, we have accumulation. You can always latch flow with mute and flow if you want. Now, the interesting part is when you start combining different accumulation with different steps. So let's put a second step here, and let's set a negative accumulation. So it goes up and then down. If I press flow, this will be engaged. So with just 3 notes, now you have a sort of arpeggiation that is very nice. And how can you use flow? For example, I set this one to accumulate when I'm in flow. I can set the second one to start accumulate when flow is disengaged. So now these accumulate, but when I press flow, they will switch. These will start accumulate and this will stop. Now let's start adding, for example, other pitches, other trigs. What I like to do is setting up, for example, these. And when you press flow and pad, this will set automatically to flow, so it will be played only when flow is pushed, like now. And you can put on this one an accumulator, negative maybe. We set it to flow too. You had some effect. And you're already in heaven to me. One trick that I really like to do in performance mode, it's of course do this variation, but for example, I love to copy the sequence passed on a second one. Now I should have the same. Remember, you can mute and mute over here. Now I have 2 sequences, the same. When I press flow, they will change behavior as I said. And here it's nice to start experimenting with the different transposition. For example, I will bring this few semitone up and this low. And then reset back. Now it's a good moment to show you another trick that I really love. Let me tune off again the effects. So now we have the same exact sequence because I copied it. If I press Shift in performance page, I can move the steps, shift the step, creating a sort of delay with the voices. Listen. Now I shifted the second one step ahead. And then I can also start playing with the tuning. And then when I want, I can reset. I find this brilliant. We worked a lot on this, and initially we wanted to do a lot of crazy stuff, and in the future maybe this performance page will add a lot of way to be personalized, customized, personalized. But in my opinion, stuff like this, a performance button, has to be simple and immediate and give you a tool to actually interact with what you're doing without complicating your life. And I think when you start playing with that, you will love it. Now, there's another interesting thing on the step page that we have to talk, which is the repetition engine. It allows you to set as much as 15 repetitions, but the cool part is that you can decide the span of time in which this repetition will happen. So I'll give you an example. I set one, let's set 2 simple tricks. Now let's set the first one. We go in the repetition page and let's say repeat 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You see that there's the duration. This means how we divide, how we span the repetition. So let's say repeat 4 times in 2 steps. Let's do in 3 steps or in 4. In 4, of course, it will be like putting 4 steps. Not only this is cool, but you can set the velocity curve. Now, performer doesn't really react to velocity, so imagine this is very cool with the VST, I love it. And then you can set the spacing between the repetition. Let's set more repetition, like 9. And here you can create a different, like, fun part. You can then decide, okay, the second step, let's put a accumulator and listen what happened. Now you can design and import your groove. You can import it also from the groove pool that you have in Ableton, because basically they are MIDI file. You can import not only groove file, but also you can start importing 8 bar of MIDI tracks using the new revamped app into the OXI One MKII. By now, the limit is 8 bars, but it's amazing already because you can. I usually start recording, putting down ideas here, refine in Ableton sometime, and then now I can bring those ideas back and play it live with hardware. Obviously, the new app is amazing. It's super easy to use. It allows you to design the groove. It allows you to create your custom definition for instrument. It's very simple now to save all of your patterns, all of your project, and import. It's really, really way easier than it was before. So let's look at how the groove works. So let's load an empty pattern. Let's just put down this. Let's set mono. And let's set. Now this is a very even and boring thing. Let's press the groove. Now we go in the groove page. You have here the chance to select different grooves. Let's set this quinta loca, and then you can set the accent and the time. Hold press to remove. It's just nice sometimes to use with the accent and a bit of time. And it's so easy starting from this to create something interesting. Let's, for example, add accumulation here. With two steps, we have already something going on. 7. This is always a great start to go back in performance. And bring back the second track. Groove, which is something that I never used a lot before, but it became really a superpower of the Mark II because it makes something that is very on the grid, boring. It gives this nice vibe, nice groove. It's super, super cool. Now there's so many other things that we improved, and there's no time for me to talk about everything, otherwise this video will be 5 hours long. You just have to be sure to subscribe to this channel and OXI channel because a lot of content will come little by little. For example, we create a new arranger that allows you to create longer composition, which is very simple to use. We improved some of our sequencer mode, for example, just to give you a taste, the matricial, which was a bit hard for me to understand and now became super nice to use. You can set your trigs, and now when you set the pitches, you just double press and you see the piano roll. You can set the end of the track here. You go back. You can set the velocity, double press, same, you can design. You can set the gate. As I mentioned before, another interesting improvement has been made with the performance tool and the multi-track. So let's reload the first pattern. Let's go in performance and let's bring things. So I'm using 3 mono track for the 3 first track of the North drum, and then on track 8 there is the rhythm generator. So now I have a rhythm that is being created. And if I go in performance page, I can, let's turn off, let's just work with these 3. I can mute all the track, but also I have the fill, which just create fills automatically using all the track. Now I have only 3, so you listen only to that. And also you have this looper, which just grab one part and loop it. It reminds me a little of the Octatrack looper, the beat repeat. It's very nice. There's so much more, and I will talk about in the future videos. Should you upgrade if you have a Mark I? That really depends. I truly believe that Mark I is an insanely great instrument. It has been my tool for a long, long time. But if you have the allowance, obviously this is a no-brainer. There's a lot of features that improve playability, makes the sequencer an instrument you can play. And we build a platform that will grow. To say goodbye, I'll just improvise and create something from scratch. Let's see what we can do.